students. Today we are going to discuss about Geography Chapter 3 Drainage. Students, in our last class we discussed about physical features of India. Listened it? Yes. Now we shall discuss about drainage. Students, before going into the details, let's understand the meaning of the words river system, water divide and drainage basin. Let us discuss about drainage. Students, drainage means a river system of an area. What do you mean by river system? Yes. Generally, when we discussed about any particular river along with its tributaries, the area where it flows is called the river system. A river and its tributaries together is called a river system. Students, when a river is flowing through a particular area, the area where it is draining, where it is passing through, where it is flowing continuously, that is known as the drainage of the river. And when a river is flowing through a particular region, we call it as a river basin, or we also call it as drainage basin. Students, the river and its tributaries together is called river system. Water divide means when any elevated area such as a mountain or an upland separates two drainage basins, it is known as water divide. When a river divided by an upper elevated land, it may be a hill, it may be an elevated part of any landmass which will divide the flow of the water into two parts is called as water divide. Students, what do you mean by river system? Yes, the river and its tributaries together is called a river system. For example, Indus and its tributaries together is called Indus River System. Students, when it flows through the Indian region, so Indus River Drainage System. And when it is divided at the Himalayan region, so we have the water divide near the Himalayas. And for Ganga, we have Devaprayaga where it is joined together. So it is a joining place is called Doab region. When it is divided is called water divide. When it is joined, it is called Doab. Students, Doab means two joining together. So, like this, we have different words which we use in our Indian river system or Indian drainage system. Students, what is called a drainage basin? Yes, the area drained by a single river system is called a drainage basin. Students, do you know the Amazon River is the world's largest drainage basin? Moving on to understand drainage system of India. Now let us know what are the major types of rivers that are present in our country. The Indian rivers are divided into two major groups. They are the Himalayan rivers and the peninsular rivers. Students, we can divide the entire rivers into two major rivers. One is Himalayan rivers, the other one is the peninsular rivers. Moving on to understand the Himalayan rivers. Students, the Himalayan rivers are the rivers which have their source from the Himalayas. So, that is the reason why appropriately they are known as Himalayan rivers. So, in the Himalayan rivers, these rivers flow continuously whole along the year, even in the summer, winter, and in the rainy season. Students, they maintain equal balance of amount of water in their sources. So, they continue with a huge amount of water in their journey. So, these are known as perennial rivers. Students, perennial rivers have water throughout the year. See, these rivers get water from rain and snow. Students, most of the Himalayan rivers are perennial. It means that they have water throughout the year. They continue with a huge amount of water in their journey. So, these are known as perennial rivers. Their sources, as I mentioned earlier, they have from Himalayas, melted snow, and also from rainfall in their process of journey. Or in the course of the journey, they make many meanders and the oxbow lakes. Students, what do you mean by meander? Meander means large bends formed by the twisting and turning of a river while entering a plain are known as meanders. Students, as the river enters the plain, it twists and turns, forming large bends known as meanders. Oxbow Lake means when the meander loop is cut off from the main river. It forms a cut-off lake, as its shape is like an oxbow. It is also known as Oxbow Lake. That means due to continuous erosion and deposition along the sides of the meander, the ends of the meander loop come closer and closer. In due course of time, the meander loop cuts off from the river and forms a cut-off lake, also called an oxbow lake. Students, the famous Himalayan rivers are Indus, Ganga, and Brahmaputra. So, the Himalayan rivers originate in the Himalayan region and they flow through continuously whole along the year, and they have water completely filled in them along the year. They never dry up, like they do not have any seasonal impact on them, and they make many meanders and the oxbow lakes. Students, what do you know about the Himalayan rivers? Yes, the Himalayan rivers are the rivers which have their source from the Himalayas. Most of the Himalayan rivers are perennial, which means they have water throughout the year. Students, these rivers receive water from rain as well as from melted snow from the high mountains. The Indus, Ganga, and the Brahmaputra are the major Himalayan rivers. They originate from north of the mountain ranges. Students, do you know these rivers are long and joined by many large and important tributaries? They have cut through the mountains making gorges. Students, a gorge is a deep narrow channel created by a flowing river. The Himalayan rivers have long courses from their source to the sea. These rivers perform intensive erosion activity in their upper course and carry huge loads of silt and sand. See, these rivers form meanders and oxbow lakes. Students, these rivers have well developed deltas. What do you mean by delta? Yes, it is a triangular area of land where a river has split into many smaller rivers before entering the sea. Students, name the two major groups the Indian rivers are divided into. Yes, the Himalayan rivers and the peninsular rivers. What are perennial rivers? Yes, the rivers that have water throughout the year are called perennial rivers. Students, do you know which are the three major Himalayan rivers? Yes, the three major Himalayan rivers are the Indus, the Ganga, and the Brahmaputra. Students, can you tell what is a gorge? Yes, a gorge is a deep, narrow channel created by a flowing river. Moving on to understand the next broad category of the rivers, that is the peninsular rivers. Students, the peninsular rivers are the rivers which are originating in the Western Ghats. These are found in the peninsular plateau region and these are non-perennial. Students, a non-perennial river is one that is partially or fully dry for part of the year. They get their source from the Western Ghat hills in the mountain ranges and they have the impact of the seasons. In summer, Most of the time, the level of the water will be less when compared to the rainy season and the winter season. And their sources are from the Western Ghats and the rainfall region. Students, they form the deep valleys in contrast to the Himalayan rivers. And the important rivers of the peninsular plateau are Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, and Mahanadi. All these are the important rivers, and these all originate in the Western Ghats, flow towards the east, and fall into the Bay of Bengal. Students, what do you know about the peninsular rivers? These are seasonal rivers as their flow is dependent on rainfall. During the dry season, the large rivers even reduced the flow of water in their channel. See, these rivers have shorter and shallower courses as compared to the Himalayan rivers. Most peninsular rivers originate in the Western Ghats and flow towards the Bay of Bengal. For example, Mahanadi, Godavari, etc. Students, do you know some rivers originate in the central highlands, flow westward direction in the Arabian Sea? Students, why are peninsular rivers called seasonal? Yes, the peninsular rivers are called seasonal because their flow depends upon rainfall. Even large rivers like the Narmada have less water during the dry season. Students, do you know where do most of the peninsular rivers originate? Where do they flow? Yes, most of the peninsular rivers originate from the Western Ghats and they flow into the Bay of Bengal. Let us discuss about the Indus river system. Students, now we shall discuss about the Himalayan rivers. As I mentioned earlier, we have two major broad categories of the rivers. Listen to it. Yes. The Himalayan rivers and the peninsular rivers. So, among the Himalayan rivers, the first most important one is River Indus. Students, the river Indus originates in Tibet, that is at Lake Mansarovar. After originating from Mansarovar, it moves on into the Indian land in the Ladakh district, that is in Jammu and Kashmir. After entering into India, various other tributaries of this Indus River, also from that region, it joins into the Indus in the Kashmir region. Those tributaries which are coming from Tibet to India are Jaskar, Nubra, Shiok, and Humsa. Students, Jaskar, Nubra, Shiok, and Humsa together join River Indus in Kashmir region. After joining in the Kashmir region, when it passes through Baltistan and Gilgit ranges and enters into the Attock region. Students, after entering into the Attock region, it gets divided itself into 5 major tributaries in the Punjab region. That is Sadlej, Ravi, Bias, Chenab, and Zeelam, where it provides a huge land with full fertile and supplies irrigation water continuously for the entire Punjab, Haryana, Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh states. And later it enters at Midankot, and after entering into Pakistan, it flows towards the southward and then east of Karachi. It joins into the Arabian Sea where ends its long journey of 2900 kilometers. And it also provides water supply in India for the states like Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab, and Himachal Pradesh. Students, in 1960, India signed an agreement with Pakistan stating that about the Indus water. India can use 20% of the Indus river water which is be carried from India to the Pakistan. Students, according to this Treaty of Indus Water Treaty, India can utilize 20% of water in the states like Punjab, Himachal Pradesh and Jammu and Kashmir for doing agriculture irrigation practices. So, this is the brief story of Indus journey. Students, what do you know about the Indus River system? Yes, the Indus River rises from Tibet near Mansarovar Lake. It flows westwards and enters India in the Ladakh district of Jammu and Kashmir. Listen to it. Yes. Several tributaries like the Jaskar, Nubra, Shiok, and Humsa join it in the Kashmir region. Students, the Indus flows through Baltistan and Gilgit ranges and emerges from the mountains at Attock. Students, name the tributaries which join Indus River in Kashmir. Yes, the Jaskar, the Nubra, the Humsa and the Shiok are the tributaries which join Indus River in Kashmir. Students, where does the Indus River originate? Yes, the Indus River originates in Tibet near Lake Mansarovar. The Satluj, Beas, Ravi, Chenab and Jhelum join together the Indus near Mithankot in Pakistan. Students, the Indus flows southwards till it reaches the Arabian Sea east of Karachi port in Pakistan. See, it has a total length of 2900 km and it is one of the longest rivers of the world. Students, do you know which are the main tributaries of river Indus? Yes, the Satluj, the Ravi, the Beas, the Chenab and the Jhelum are the main tributaries of river Indus. Students, do you know in which sea river Indus falls into? Yes, river Indus flows into the Arabian Sea. Students, what is the total length of river Indus? Yes, the total length of river Indus is 2900 kilometers. Moving on to understand the Ganga river system. Students, the river Ganga is being widely spread in the entire northern plains. So, let us see how the journey of Ganga starts, where it starts, what are the tributaries, where it is being joined, all we shall discuss. Students, the river Ganga originates from two of its tributaries, that is Bhagirathi and Alaknanda. Bhagirathi is getting from Himalayan origin and then Alaknanda. These two join at Devaprayag where they give birth to the river Ganga. Along with this, we also have other set of river Ganga, that is Yamuna, having its origin from Yamunotri glacier. And also we have Nepal Himalaya belt joining river Ganga, that is Gagra, Gantak and Kosi. These all originating in Nepal Himalayan region. So these all come and join into river Ganga at Allahabad. So we have two set of tributaries joined together to make a very large river, that is river Ganga. Students, the Ganga river system starts as the Bhagirathi from the Gangotri glaciers in Uttarakhand. It is joined by the Alaknanda river at Devaprayag to form the Ganga. See, its length is over 2500 km. So, after joining here from the mountain ranges, it starts to come to the normal plainlands. River Ganga from the higher elevation started to reach lower places and a special place is called Haridwar. Students, at Haridwar, the Ganga emerges from the mountains on to the plains. Its major tributaries are Yamuna, Gagra, Gantak and Kosi. The Ganga's main tributaries come from the peninsular uplands. They are the Chambal, the Betwa and the Son. Students, the Ganga flows eastwards till Faraka in West Bengal. Here it divides into two branches and forms a tributary known as the Bhagirathi Hooghly, which flows into the Bay of Bengal. The main stream of the Ganga flows into Bangladesh, where it is joined by the Brahmaputra, coming from Assam to form the Meghna. Finally, it makes a beautiful delta region Sundarban before joining into the Bay of Bengal. Like this, it plays a very vital role. And then, when we discuss about the area where it is covering, students, it makes a very large journey similar to that of River Indus. That is, River Indus travels for nearly 2900 kilometers. Just very close nearby, we have 2500 kilometers journey of River Ganga, spreading into various tributaries in the entire northern Indian plains. And that is the reason why it is also known as Indo-Gangetic Plain. Ganga is covering nearly 1800 kilometers of width of the entire northern plains. The plains from Ambala to the Sundarban stretch over nearly 1800 kilometers. Students, in other words, there is a fall of just 1 meter for every 6 kilometers. Therefore, the river develops large meanders. Students, from which place does the river Ganga originate? Yes. The headwaters of the Ganga called the Bhagirathi is fed by Gangotri Glacier and joined by Alaknanda at Devaprayag in Uttarakhand. Students, which rivers rise from Nepal Himalayas? Yes, the Gagra, the Gandak and the Kosi rise in the Nepal Himalayas. Students, can you tell which tributaries join Ganga from peninsular uplands? Yes, the Chambal, the Betwa and the Son join the Ganga from the peninsular uplands. Students, where did Ganga river named as Meghna? Yes, after joining Brahmaputra river, Ganga river named as Meghna. Students, what do you know about the Ganga river system? Yes, the Ganga originates from Gangotri, situated in the glacier of Bhagirathi, at the spot of origin till its meeting with Alaknanda in Devaprayag. It is called Bhagirathi. Students, at Haridwar, the Ganga emerges from the mountains to the plains. The Yamuna, the Gagra, the Gandak and the Kosi are its major tributaries. Students, the total length of the river Ganga is over 2500 kilometers. The main stream of the Ganga flows into Bangladesh, where it is joined by the Brahmaputra, coming from Assam to form the Meghna. It flows into Bay of Bengal. Finally, it makes a beautiful delta region, Sundarban, before joining into the Bay of Bengal. The Sundarban Delta gets its name from the Sundari trees, which grow very well in the marshland and does not get rot in water. Students, do you know how is Sundarban Delta formed? Yes, the waters of two very big rivers, for example the Ganga and the Brahmaputra, flows into the Bay of Bengal, and the delta formed by these rivers is known as Sundarban Delta. It is the world's largest and fastest growing delta. Moving on to understand the Brahmaputra river system. Students, the Brahmaputra rises in Tibet, east of Mansarovar Lake. It moves parallelly to the Himalayas. Actually, river Brahmaputra travels more distance than river Indus. But it is traveling outside India. So it does not come into our account. Now it moves on parallel to Himalayas. Then it takes U-turn at Namcha Barwa mountain range. And then it enters into Arunachal Pradesh, creating a gorge. Students, what is a gorge? Yes, a gorge is a deep narrow channel created by a flowing river. After creating a gorge, it moves and enters into the mainland. It is known as Dihang. Later, it enters into India with the name of Brahmaputra in the Arunachal Pradesh and the Assam regions. If we look at the journey of Brahmaputra, it is first passing through a very smaller deep valleys and the volume of the water is very less. But as it enters into the Indian land, when it passes through a very high rainfall region, so it collects huge amount of water resulting in the formation of the riverine lands in the Assam region. And Majula is the name of the riverine land which is created by river Brahmaputra, and it is the largest riverine land inhabited by the people in the world. That is Majula, Majula riverine land. So, it creates a very large riverine lands and which are very fertile region, and it also carries huge silt, soil and deposit which makes it a riverbed to get rise up and which result in the frequent floods in the Brahmaputra flowing regions, especially in the states of Assam, and finally it enters into Bangladesh by naming itself by Batma and ends up its journey by joining into Bay of Bengal. Students, now I am going to recall the Brahmaputra river system. The Brahmaputra originates from Tibet. It flows parallel to the Himalayan mountains in Tibet. Listen to it. Yes. It flows eastwards parallel to the Himalayas. Then it takes U-turn at Namcha Barwa and enters India in Arunachal Pradesh. Here it is called the Dihang. Students, it is joined by the Dibang, the Lohit and many other tributaries to form the Brahmaputra in Assam. Students, do you know from where does Brahmaputra river originate? Yes, the Brahmaputra river originates in Tibet, east of Mansarovar Lake, very close to the sources of the Indus and the Sutlej. Students, when did Brahmaputra river known as Dihang? Yes, when Brahmaputra river enters India, it is known as Dihang. When Brahmaputra river enters India, it is known as Dihang. Students, do you know Brahmaputra called as Shangpo in Tibet and Jamuna in Bangladesh? Students, the Brahmaputra river is a braided channel in its entire length in Assam and forms many riverine islands. For example, Majuli in Brahmaputra is the largest inhabited riverine island in the world. Moving on to understand drainage pattern. Drainage pattern means the pattern in which the river flows. Depending on the slope of land, underlying rock structure, as well as the climatic conditions. Students, the streams within a drainage basin form certain patterns depending on the slope of land, underlying rock structure, as well as the climatic condition of the area. Students, there are basically four drainage patterns of rivers. They are dendritic drainage, trellis drainage, rectangular drainage, and radial drainage. Now, let us discuss about dendritic drainage. Students, this pattern is the most common pattern followed by rivers like the Ganga. This develops where the river channel follows the slope of the terrain. The stream with its tributaries resembles the branches of a tree. Students, it develops where the river channels follows the slope of the land. When the stream and the tributaries drainage pattern resembles the branches of a tree, so it is called dendritic. Moving on to understand trellis drainage. Students, in this pattern, short tributaries meet long trunk streams at near right angles. They are formed on sedimentary rocks of different resistance to erosion. An example is the Narmada River. Students, trellis pattern develops when a river is joined by its tributaries at approximately right angles. It also develops when the hard and soft rocks exist parallel to each other. Moving on to understand rectangular drainage pattern. Students, in this type of pattern, straight tributaries meet straight trunk streams with bends at almost right angles. These are formed on faulted or fractured bedrock. This drainage pattern develops on a strongly jointed rocks terrain. Moving on to understand radial drainage pattern. Students, in this pattern, the streams flow outward from a well-defined central point like a volcano or other round uplift of land. This drainage pattern develops when streams flow in different direction from a central peak or dome-like structure. Students, list the factors on which the drainage pattern depend. Yes, the slope of the land, the rock structure, as well as the climatic conditions of the area are some factors on which the drainage pattern depends. Students, do you know how is the dendritic pattern formed by the river? Yes, the dendritic pattern is formed by the river channel when the river follows the slope of the land. The stream with its tributaries develops a pattern that resembles the branches of a tree, so named as dendritic. How does a trellis pattern of drainage develop? Yes. In this pattern, short tributaries meet long trunk streams at near right angles. They are formed on sedimentary rocks of different resistance to erosion. Students, how does a rectangular pattern of drainage develop? Yes, rectangular pattern of drainage develops on a strongly jointed rocky terrain. Students, do you know how does a radial pattern of drainage develop? Yes, radial pattern develops when streams flow in different directions from a central peak or dome. Students, now I am going to revise important terms. At first, we will discuss about drainage and river system. Students, drainage means river system of an area. Listen to it. Yes. Generally, when we discussed about any particular river along with its tributaries, the area where it flows is called the river system. The river and its tributaries together is called river system. Let us discuss about drainage basin. Students, a drainage basin means the area drained by a single river system. When a river is flowing through a particular area, the area where it is draining, where it is passing through, where it is flowing continuously, that is known as the drainage of the river. And when a river is flowing through a particular region, we call it as a river basin, or we also call it as drainage basin. Moving on to understand water divide. Water divide means an elevated area such as a mountain or an upland that separates two drainage basins from each other. When any elevated area such as a mountain or an upland separates two drainage basins, it is known as water divide. Or when a river divided by an upper elevated land, it may be a hill, it may be an elevated part of any landmass which will divide the flow of the water into two parts is called as water divide. Let us see perennial rivers. Perennial rivers means rivers which have water throughout the year. For example, Himalayan rivers. Students, these rivers flow continuously whole along the year, even in the summer and in the winter and in the rainy season. They flow on, they maintain equal balance of amount of water in their sources. So, they continue with a huge amount of water in their journey. So, these are known as perennial rivers. Perennial rivers means rivers which have water throughout the year. These rivers get water from rain and snow. For example, river Ganga. Students, in which two major groups Indian rivers are divided into? Yes, the Indian rivers are divided into the Himalayan rivers and the peninsular rivers. Students, what is a watershed? Yes, an upland or highland area that separates two drainage basin systems. Students, now I am going to differentiate the Himalayan rivers and the peninsular rivers. The Himalayan rivers are mostly perennial. See, they depend not only on rainfall but also on melting of snow. But the perennial rivers are mostly seasonal in nature. Students, they depend on rainfall only. Students, the Himalayan rivers perform intensive erosional activity in the upper courses. Students, the peninsular rivers hardly perform erosional activity even in their upper courses. The famous Himalayan rivers are Indus, Ganga, and Brahmaputra. Students, the important rivers of the peninsular plateau are Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, Narmada, and Tabi. Students, the Himalayan rivers bring new alluvium and enrich the plains. Therefore, they are good for agriculture. Students, do you know the peninsular rivers do not spread silt? Moreover, no major plains are found in the peninsular plateau. Fertile lands can be found only in small deltas. Hence, this is the difference between the Himalayan rivers and the peninsular rivers. Students, which are the three major Himalayan rivers? Yes, the three major Himalayan rivers are the Indus, the Ganga, and the Brahmaputra. Students, mention two features of the Himalayan rivers. Yes, the Himalayan rivers are long. See, these rivers are joined by many large and important tributaries. Students, which states of India are benefited by the Indus? Punjab, Haryana, and the southern and western parts of Rajasthan are benefited by the Indus. Moving on to understand Indus Water Treaty. Students, in 1960, India signed in an agreement with Pakistan stating that about the Indus water. According to the regulations of the Indus Water Treaty, India can use only 20% of the total water carried by Indus river system. That means India can use only 20% of the Indus river water which is be carried from India to the Pakistan. Students, according to this treaty, India can utilize 20% of water in the states like Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, and Jammu and Kashmir for doing agriculture, irrigation practices. That means this water is used for irrigation in the Punjab, Haryana, and the southern and western parts of Rajasthan. Students, where does the Indus River originate? Yes, the Indus River originates in Tibet near Lake Mansarovar. Students, do you know what is the total length of River Indus? Yes, the total length of River Indus is 2900 kilometers. How is Sundarban Delta formed? The waters of two very big rivers, for example the Ganga and the Brahmaputra, flows into Bay of Bengal, and the delta formed by these rivers is known as Sundarban Delta. Students, do you know it is the world's largest and fastest growing delta? What is the total length of the river Ganga? Yes, the total length of the river Ganga is over 2500 kilometers. Let us discuss about drainage pattern. Students, drainage pattern means the pattern in which the river flows. The streams within a drainage basin form certain patterns depending on the slope of land, underlying rock structure, as well as the climatic conditions of the area. Students, there are basically four drainage patterns of rivers. They are dendritic pattern, trellis pattern, rectangular pattern, and radial pattern. Students, where do most of the peninsular rivers originate? Where do they flow? Yes, most of the peninsular rivers originate from the Western Ghats and they flow into the Bay of Bengal. Why are peninsular rivers called seasonal? Yes, the peninsular rivers are called seasonal because their flow depends upon rainfall. Even large rivers like the Narmada have less water during the dry season.